undertake with that. And that's why we want to point out to folks that the process of doing that, it has some hazard to it, and try to minimize the risk that goes with that.
And what are some of the hazards and risks that come with binge drinking? Because most people, when they drink alcohol, they don't really take in consideration the repercussions that are going to come later on after drinking large amounts of alcohol.
Sure. Let's talk about it in two ways. First off, the effect on the individual themselves. As you know, when you take a drink, that alcohol gets into your blood, and that in and of itself is not a particularly big problem, but it also gets into your brain. The effect there is to slow your reflexes. You begin to have some diminished reasoning, decreased judgment. Inhibitions oftentimes are decreased as well. Physical types of symptoms, everybody's seen the sort of the stereotypic drunk with slurred speech and confusion and bad coordination, ultimately resulting in getting sick to your stomach and throwing up. But more so than that, our concerns of actually passing out and the toxic effects of the alcohol on the parts of the body that it affects.
Okay, so when a person's passed out, the alcohol is still working in their system, even though they're unconscious. And what are some of the disastrous effects that can happen when a person is unconscious and after they've been binge drinking?
Well, and here again, direct effects on the body, just the process of what happens with the alcohol and how it affects your tissues. Something that a lot of us don't know is that we break down alcohol in our systems in two steps. The first step takes alcohol to formaldehyde, and for most folks that are familiar with that, it's what we use to preserve tissues. So when they talk about getting pickled, this actually truly happens. The rate limiting step is the taking it from formaldehyde down to the next step, which is not toxic. The body doesn't do as fast as it should. And so there's damage to liver, damage to brain, damage to heart, and other organs from that direct chemical effect. Maybe more importantly is if you pass out in the wrong place, you could be in danger. If it happens to be in the middle of the street, you're in the middle of traffic. If it happens to be while you're driving, that's a problem. So there are those indirect hazards that go with drinking too much as well.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the body system way of breaking down alcohol. What are some of the myths that people conceive of when they think of the body breaking down alcohol? And how long does it take for the body to break down one particular drink, just a drink in general?
If we're talking about just an average drink, which would be a short shot of whiskey, a small glass of wine, or a can of beer, that, regardless of how much you drink before, they talk about conditioning, but regardless of how much you drink before, it still takes about an hour for a male and about an hour and a half for a woman to break down that alcohol and get it cleared from the system.
Okay. I've always been curious, why does it take longer for women to break down alcohol than men?
Interesting difference between the sexes. Genetically speaking, the enzymes that break down alcohol are less plentiful in women. And so the consequence there is that if you take a man and a woman, expose them to the same level of alcohol, you put the woman at markedly increased risks for developing those physical things that we don't like to think about, but that do happen with alcohol. For example, cirrhosis. In men, we talk about the issue of somebody could potentially drink up to 3 drinks a day spread out without having any organ damage, but in women, that limit is about 1.5.
Okay. Now, there are some myths that surround alcohol. I've heard from several people that if you have a beer a day, that it helps flush your system out. I didn't know if that was true. And I've also heard that people, of course, believe that if you drink coffee or if you take some aspirin, that you won't have a hangover, that the alcohol is going to flush through your system a lot quicker. Maybe could you defeat some of those myths for us?
Sure. The second one first. The issue of coffee has nothing to do with the breakdown of alcohol, but it provides a stimulant that counteracts some of the sedatives. So the issue is maybe it'll wake you up. The problem is the alcohol is still in your system. You're now more awake, but your reflexes are still your judgment is still impaired.
Mhm.
The aspirin or whatever you like to take for the hangover headache probably does have some usefulness taken early on. It decreases the inflammation, does not speed the exit of the alcohol from your system, however.
But can that be dangerous if you take them with certain medicines because of the alcohol? They're not supposed to be taken with alcohol.
Exactly. There are a number of medications that interact in an additive fashion to that sedation that comes with alcohol. So if someone happens to be on one of those medications, and that ranges from antidepressants and those kinds of things to over-the-counter antihistamines, it can make the effect of the alcohol just that much more strong.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to go back to the first myth that you mentioned, the issue of drinking on a regular basis is good for you in some fashion. For people who do not have a tendency toward addiction, there is good data that suggests that alcohol in small amounts on a regular basis may have some heart protective effects.
Okay.
That does not apply across the board, and there are any number of medical conditions that would warrant against that. And then again, the issue of for someone who has the addictive potential, that one drink may lead to a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the long-term effects of then drinking on a daily basis? If people were to drink on a daily basis and not be affected, or to be affected by it, you should.
Yeah, you get into a variety of things. You know, we always think about the Skid Row type of individual who's a chronic alcoholic and doesn't look good and has poor health, and certainly the issue of brain damage as well as liver damage. But alcohol's been associated with certain cancers, specifically cancer in the stomach and the esophagus and the mouth. Development of ulcers and other intestinal disease, the problems of drinking when you're pregnant. For the women who are listening, we know that alcohol, even in a little bit, has potential to be very harmful to the baby, and so those issues go with that. Then you get into the long-term effects of if you're taking your calories in by alcohol, you're avoiding getting your nutrients in a balanced fashion, and you can actually become very nutritionally deprived, even though you've got plenty of calories in. They're empty calories.
Okay. Now that we've talked about basically the effects of alcohol, I want to kind of narrow it down to who is the most likely group, and who does usually use binge drinking more than most people? Is there a group of men or women that binge drink more than others?
We see this. We see binge drinking largely if you look at groups of folks in our young adults, and so late teens, early 20s, which makes the college student population a very much at-risk type of process. It's sort of a part of a tradition.